Aaron Wallace from Balance Your Fitness. Hello there. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I wanted to talk today about carbohydrates. So on my picture today, on my post preview, I'm putting a lot of stuff on there about how we can be able to go and lose weight and what some of the diets had been effective in the past that we've seen in the past, things like the South Beach diet, Atkins, things like that, and why I'm going to talk today about why carbs get a bad rap, how we can still be able to go and lose weight and still have carbohydrates, our favorite carbohydrates in our diet, and be able to have a balanced approach to being able to go and lose weight without feeling like you actually are struggling with the focus and the issues mental emotionally. So I just saw my buddy Corey joined on Instagram. So thanks, Corey, for joining us today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. So today when we talk about carbohydrates, most people think that carbohydrates are that overeating carbohydrates are the worst thing for weight loss, and a lot of say that can happen for a lot of people, but having too much carbohydrate in our diet is a symptom of something else going wrong inside the body. So just a little bit of a background about what carbohydrates do in our body. What are they for? How do they work? So carbohydrates in our body are our body's basic fuel source. So during the basic energy pathways in the body, we take the fully broken down forms of carbohydrates, sugar, right, or specifically glucose, and our body is able to use oxygen to go and convert that into energy that our body can use. So there's several ways that this can get disrupted to where we feel like we want more carbohydrates, and our energy level's low even though we've eaten enough. One of the things that people tend to go and get quite a bit of in their diets, in the standard American diet, are things like processed oils, such as processed vegetable oils. Those types of fats that we end up intaking also go and completely disrupt our ability to utilize carbohydrates effectively. It ends up having us produce more inflammation in the body. We end up producing what the byproduct, it's called lactic acid, and we end up producing more of that, and they end up utilizing the sugar in a way that's a lot less efficient. So one of the things that you can do to be able to make sure you have carbohydrates effectively is avoid being able to go and have a lot of oil-based fried food. So anytime you're using things like canola oil, vegetable oil, soybean oil, most processed foods will go and utilize these things because they're cheap and easy to use and very abundant. But however, they're not necessarily really great for our health. So another big reason why people struggle with carbohydrates is the amount of stress that we're dealing with on a daily basis. So this happens quite a bit with people that have dieted quite a bit in the past, especially sort of the starvation style yo-yoing diets. When you cut down caloric intake to such a level that we end up draining out all of our stores of glycogen in our muscles, and we end up having to mass produce the hormone cortisol as a response. So our basic survival response when it comes to carbohydrates is that we actually need carbohydrates to function when it comes to our brain and our nervous system. Our brain and our nervous system cannot use fat as a fuel source effectively. Right? You need to be able to have sugar or glucose storage available for your brain and nervous system to function appropriately. So our body always has a reserve that we can be able to go to. In order to get to that reserve, we pump out more of our stress hormones. So we pump out more cortisol, and it breaks down our muscle tissue. So the more stress that you're under, whether that's from a chemical stress such as not eating the right balance of foods, whether that's a mental emotional stress from, being stuck on I-75, or perhaps having an argument with your spouse, or you don't like your job, yada, yada. We increase the amount of cortisol that we produce. One of the side effects of cortisol is to take our muscle tissue, break it down, and turn it into sugar. So what our body thinks is happening when we're under stress is we think we're under the basic fight or flight response. Our bodies are fine-tuned to be able to go and be very sensitive to base survival mechanisms. That's how we survived when there wasn't a McDonald's on every corner. So with that fine-tuned response, anytime that we have our stress levels rise, our body wants sugar, right? Our body wants sugar to be able to go and respond to a threat. It's something that is a base level issue that you can't control. So the second thing I want to go and talk about to be able to go and help reduce excess carbohydrate cravings is being able to lower the amount of stress. Yes, Corey just mentioned that he said it was he was just spiking just thinking about driving on I-75. I actually driving north on 75 isn't quite as stressful, but basically anytime I actually drive in traffic, because I don't drive in traffic as much anymore. I know everyone would probably be for saying that, but anytime I drive in traffic, it's fairly stressful. I have friends that live a little bit closer and living in traffic, and driving on I-75 is quite stressful. But anytime that you go and you produce that stress, we're going to end up going and craving more carbohydrates, which makes it harder for us to lose weight. So the basic thing that we can be able to do to blunt that is to be able to go and work on our breathing. Now, we've talked a lot of videos. You can actually look up some of my videos on stress and on breathing. So after you're done watching this, go ahead and look up some of my Facebook, Instagram, social media posts on breathing and decreasing stress. That's your homework for the day. So once we're going to take care of our breathing, the next thing we want to be able to talk about is, I want to be able to lose weight, but again, how do I be able to make sure that I'm not putting my body under stress? And I don't feel like I have to go and have a bunch of carbohydrates all the time. And I feel like I've got to have, my snack at night, my carbohydrates at night, because that helps me manage my stress. And that sometimes can happen. And one of the things that's most important to be able to do that is to be able to strength train effectively. So one of the things that total body strength training does is that when you add more muscle tissue, you increase the amount of carbohydrates or glucose you can store in your muscles at any one time. So what happens is that if your body has a reserve of sugar that it can go to without pumping out the stress response, our body doesn't feel like we get that massive craving, right? Or it's much more easily managed. You don't feel like it's just really weighing you down and feeling like I just got to have something around and gnaw my arm off. By being able to go and have a well-designed strength training program, you can be able to go and eat maybe a larger meal and being able to last longer in between meals. So this is some of the basics of why sometimes people do what are called fasting or fasting diets or fasting protocols or bulletproof diets, as you maybe have heard of it before. In order for those to work, you've got to have the storage of glycogen that your nervous system can go and use when you don't have anything to eat for 12 or 14 hours or so when you're doing your fasting. And the only way that's available to you is if we have a storage that's developed through utilizing strength training exercise. So most of the time we talk about carbohydrates, the problem isn't necessarily, what carbs to eat or what shouldn't I eat. Is a lot of times we end up going and having these other issues that prevent us from using carbohydrates effectively, that either are making us too stressed out to where we're always craving them. And then if we're always craving them, we're always not really having that storage built up. and our muscle tissues don't have that storage. And so we always end up in this perpetual cycle, and we end up blaming, whether or not I should have fruits or I should avoid starches or things of that nature. We end up sort of missing the boat on what's some of the root causes of craving carbohydrates. And that's what I hopefully be able to go and clear up and discuss today. I wanted to thank you for joining me today. And if you guys have any questions or have any suggestions for future talks, please don't hesitate to put it in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.